There's something most people never really talk about when it comes to aging. It's not the wrinkles or the slower mornings, or the names that slip your mind a little more than they used to. It's not the creak in your knees or the medicine bottles lined up by the sink. Those are just symptoms, obvious, inevitable signs that time has passed. What truly wears a person down in their later years is much quieter. It sneaks in beneath the surface, and if you're not paying attention, it can hollow you out from the inside. It's the slow fading of meaning, of connection, of feeling like your presence still matters. It's when the rhythm of your life begins to slip, and suddenly the days all feel the same, and the nights stretch longer than you thought they would. That's when the light begins to dim, not because of age, but because of absence. The absence of purpose, of movement, of people who look you in the eye and see you, not just your age or your limitations, of things that pull you forward instead of memories that only pull you back. You see it in those who have stopped waking with intention, in the way their gaze lingers out a window, not searching for anything, just waiting. They haven't run out of time. They've just run out of reason. And that's what truly makes aging hard. Not the years that pass, but the things that go missing along the way. Not all at once, but gradually. Like furniture slowly being moved out of a room until one day you look around and wonder why everything echoes. But it doesn't have to be that way. It never did. Let me tell you about a man named Walter, in his 70s, retired, alone most days. He wasn't unhappy, not at first. In fact, he told himself this was freedom. No alarm clocks, no meetings, no expectations. He could spend the whole day doing nothing, and no one would say a word. And for a little while it felt good. He slept in, he watched TV, he sat on the porch with his coffee and listened to the birds. But weeks passed, then months, and something started to shift. He couldn't quite explain it, he just felt heavier. Not physically, but somewhere deep inside. He stopped shaving, stopped calling friends. The coffee got cold before he finished it. And when someone asked him what he did that day, he paused. He didn't know how to answer. That's what the absence of purpose feels like. It's not loud, it doesn't knock down your door, it just slowly erodes your sense of direction until you start to forget why you're getting up in the morning. And without purpose, time stretches, moments blur, days become pages with nothing written on them. But then Walter did something small. Almost nothing, really. He started feeding the birds, just a handful of seeds each morning. And then he started reading again, one chapter a day. Eventually he found a notebook and started jotting down thoughts. Soon there was a rhythm. Not big, not dramatic, just enough to create a heartbeat in the quiet. That's the thing. Purpose doesn't have to be grand. It just has to give shape to your time, to give your spirit something to lean on. And when that purpose returns, even in the form of a bird feeder and a book, something inside begins to wake up again. Then there's Harold. He used to be strong. Built like a tree, people would say, the kind of man who could carry groceries for the whole block or lift his grandkids with one arm. But after an illness laid him out for a few weeks, he never really got back into motion. The days passed, and the walking stopped. He told himself he was resting. But soon, rest turned into stillness, and stillness into fear. His legs didn't feel like his own anymore, and stairs, he avoided them altogether. Before long, the world felt like it had gotten bigger, harder to navigate. His confidence withered, his energy disappeared. What Harold didn't know, what most people don't realize, is that the body doesn't ask for much. Just a little consistency. A short walk, a bit of stretching. 10 minutes with a resistance band. Small things. But those small things compound. They remind your body that you're still in this together. That you're still here. And when your body remembers how to move, your mind starts to believe it again too. Harold started with 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. It wasn't about getting strong again. It was about reclaiming something he thought he'd lost. The belief that he could still participate in his own life. And it's not about running marathons or hitting the gym. It's about choosing movement over fear, reaching for what's within reach and not giving up because you can't do what you once could. The truth is, you don't have to move the way you used to. You just have to move. Every step is a vote for life. Every stretch is a promise that you're not giving up on yourself. Not today. And in the same breath, let's talk about connection. Not just being around people, but being truly seen. Ruth knew the difference. She was 78, a widow, and the quiet in her house had grown heavier since her husband passed. At first, friends came around, calls were frequent. But then life got busy for everyone else. She understood. She didn't blame anyone. But the silences grew. Days passed without a single voice reaching her ears. Her children loved her, but they lived far. She didn't want to be a burden, and so she stopped reaching out. That's how it begins. With one missed call, then another, and soon the phone just doesn't ring anymore. Ruth wasn't surrounded by strangers, she was surrounded by silence. And that's what hurt. Not being alone, but feeling forgotten. It's not that she needed crowds or constant company. She just needed one person to talk to. Someone who remembered her stories. Someone who asked how she was and waited for the real answer. That's what we all need. Connection. The kind that reminds us we still matter. That someone would notice if we disappeared. It's not about having a full calendar, it's about having a place to belong, even if that place is just a phone call with someone who remembers the name of your dog. Ruth eventually joined a local garden club, not because she liked plants, but because she missed being part of something. And what she found there wasn't just flowers. It was laughter, recognition, a hand on her shoulder that said, "You still belong here." There's no substitute for that, no pill you can take to replace the warmth of someone remembering your name, of someone asking how you really are. When that connection is gone, even the sunniest days feel cold. But when it returns, when even one thread of care is woven back into your life, something inside you lights up. You stand a little taller. You wake up with something to look forward to. And suddenly, the world feels less like it's passing you by, and more like it's waiting for you to step back in. There's something deeply human about the need to be mentally awake. Not just alive, not just breathing, but engaged, curious, alert. And yet, in old age, that flame can begin to flicker without warning. It's not that your mind isn't still sharp. It's that it's no longer being asked to stretch. The world assumes you're done learning, done thinking, done discovering. But that's where they get it wrong. The brain, like the body, thrives on use. When left idle, it doesn't just rest, it fades, slowly, quietly. Until one day, you find yourself repeating stories not because you've forgotten others, but because nothing new has taken their place. Take Leonard, for instance, 83. Once an accountant, sharp as a tack. His mind used to dance through numbers, through strategies. Retirement was supposed to be his reward, no deadlines, no pressure. But after the first year, something shifted. Days became predictable. His mind, underused, began to wander into loops. The same conversations, the same news, the same dull quiet. Until one birthday, his granddaughter gave him a book of crossword puzzles. Simple at first, almost childish, but Leonard tried them. And then something remarkable happened. That spark, small but steady, came back. Not because he suddenly had a challenge, but because he had something new. Curiosity is not a young person's game. It's an ageless force, one that breathes life into otherwise ordinary moments. And when you stop feeding your curiosity, your days lose flavor. Things feel flat, not awful, just grey. But the moment you give your mind something new, no matter how small, a ripple begins. You read something unfamiliar. You ask a new question. You try to fix something instead of tossing it. These aren't just tasks, they're affirmations. They whisper, you're still growing, you're still in motion. Mental stimulation doesn't require a university degree or a classroom, it requires engagement. Picking up a genre you've never read, watching a documentary on a subject you know nothing about, learning how to navigate that new phone, or helping a neighbor figure out their device. You might struggle at first, you might even get frustrated. But the mind loves effort. It thrives when you treat it like it still matters. And when your brain is alive, the rest of you follows. You walk taller, you speak with more energy. You carry yourself not as someone nearing an ending, but someone still writing new beginnings. And here's the part no one tells you. Mental activity isn't just about intelligence, it's about emotional survival. A curious mind leads to an open heart. A stimulated brain makes room for joy, for resilience, for adaptation. Because when you can still surprise yourself, life feels expansive, like it still has secrets left to give. People who stop being curious don't stop living, they just stop exploring. And slowly they begin to disappear from their own story. But you don't have to. You can wake up each morning and ask, what can I learn today? What can I try? What part of me is still waiting to be discovered? That question alone can begin to shift everything. Now let's talk about something even more sacred than curiosity: self-worth. There is a quiet erosion that happens with age, and it's not because you've become less. It's because the world starts treating you like less. It's in the way people talk over you at the doctor's office. It's in how they assume you don't understand technology. It's in the way they speak slower, as if volume will replace respect. And slowly you begin to shrink. Not because you want to, but because being dismissed again and again begins to wear down even the strongest soul. Carol knew that feeling. She was a nurse once, the kind you never forget. The kind who remembered your name, your story, your allergies. She'd spent her life giving care. Then, after one bad fall and a shift to a walker, everything changed. People started making decisions for her. Strangers spoke to her like she was fragile glass. Her family, well-meaning as they were, began organizing her life without asking. She wasn't angry, she was just disappearing. Not from illness, not from time, but from the slow, crushing loss of dignity. Because that's what it is, isn't it? Dignity. It's the ability to feel seen, to be consulted, to be treated like your opinion still holds weight. When that dignity is stripped away, something fundamental is lost. People start existing in a world that treats them like a problem to solve instead of a person to respect. But Carol made a choice. She started speaking up again. At first it felt awkward, asking questions, asserting herself. But the more she did, the more the people around her remembered who she was. Her voice returned, and with it, her pride. Not the kind that resists help, but the kind that demands to be included in her own life. Because being helped is not the same as being helpless. You are still you, even with grey hair, even with aches that weren't there before. Even when your calendar isn't full and your role in the world has changed. You still matter, not for what you used to do, but for who you are now. For the battles you've fought, the lessons you carry, the way your story still touches those around you, sometimes without a word. And if the world has made you feel small, know this: your worth has never been defined by your productivity, not by your job, your health, your appearance, or how fast you can move. Your worth is your breath, your presence, your wisdom. It is the grace you give, the patience you've cultivated, and the way you still show up even when no one's watching. That's dignity. That's power. Sometimes the people around you forget. That doesn't mean you have to. And finally, there's this feeling, this aching, longing need to be needed. It's not just about companionship, it's about knowing your presence still makes a difference. When no one reaches out, when no one asks for your help, it can start to feel like the world's moved on. That you've become a memory in someone else's life while you're still very much alive in your own. And that can be the loneliest feeling in the world. Frank understood that. After decades of being the pillar of his family, he suddenly found himself alone more often than not. His kids were far, his wife had passed, and though people checked in now and then, no one really needed him. Not the way they used to, until the little girl next door started showing up after school. Her parents were busy. She had nowhere else to go, and Frank, with his stories and calm presence, became her anchor. 15 minutes. That's all it took. But for Frank, those minutes were everything. Because that's the truth. We all need to feel needed. Not just loved, but useful, valued. To know that we still contribute something, even if it's just a listening ear, or a steady hand, or a story that helps someone else feel less alone. When that connection forms, it feeds something essential inside us. It brings color back to the day. It turns routines into rituals. And it reminds us that life isn't finished, not as long as someone still needs you. It could be a neighbor, a dog, a friend, a garden that blooms when you water it. The details don't matter. What matters is the relationship. The pull that reminds you there's still something outside of yourself worth showing up for. That you're still part of the weave of someone else's life. There's a quiet power in knowing that your presence still holds weight in the world. Not because of your title, not because of what you used to do, but because you still show up. Because you still care. Because you still love in the small ways that often go unnoticed, yet are deeply felt by those lucky enough to receive them. That's the kind of value that never fades with age, it deepens. And yet, so many people reach the later chapters of their life without anyone reminding them of this truth. Without anyone saying, you're still needed, you still matter. But you do. The pain of not feeling needed doesn't always shout. Sometimes it's a slow ache, a silence that stretches longer than it used to, a calendar that stays too empty, a day that passes without anyone saying your name. And when that happens enough times, you start to wonder if the world even notices your absence. If maybe, quietly, you've become invisible. But you haven't. The world has just forgotten how to look properly, how to value the depth that only time and life can give a person. That's where your power lies now, not in waiting for the world to validate you again, but in creating moments where you're needed. Even if it starts small. Even if it's uncomfortable at first. There's always someone who could use your wisdom, your kindness, your steadiness, a young person who doesn't have a role model, a friend who needs someone to listen without fixing, a neighbor who could use a kind word on a hard day. You don't need to save the world. You just need to be present for one person, one creature, one space that responds to your attention. That's more than enough. Because when we feel needed, something inside us straightens. We stop shrinking, we begin to rise, and in that rising, we start to see our own reflection more clearly. Not in the mirror, but in the way others light up when we're near. In the way someone exhales more deeply just because we've entered the room. In the way we offer something no one else can, because no one else has lived our story, carried our burdens, learned our particular kind of love. There's dignity in that. And peace. And once you find it, once you remember your place in the grand weave of life, you stop chasing youth. You stop mourning what you've lost. Instead, you begin celebrating what still remains, what still blooms, what still calls your name when the world slows down and listens closely. Because aging doesn't mean fading away. It means refining, distilling, becoming something richer, more potent, more whole. The world may not always recognize it, but you will. You'll feel it in the way your voice becomes more certain, in the way your boundaries become clearer, in the way you no longer waste time on people or things that drain your energy. That clarity, that quiet strength, is the gift of years well lived, and no one can take it from you. There will still be days that feel long, days when the body aches and the mind wanders, days when the phone doesn't ring and you wonder if you're drifting too far from the shoreline of someone's life. But on those days, you'll remember what you've built, the relationships you've nurtured, the grace you've given, the patience you've learned, and that will ground you. That will remind you that even in stillness, you are sacred. Even in silence, you carry weight. So let them forget. Let the world keep moving at a pace that often forgets the beauty of slow, deliberate presence. You don't need to keep up. You don't need to chase. You've already arrived. Now is the time for deeper things. For meaningful conversations that don't rush, for sunsets that you watch all the way through, for letters written by hand, for stories told slowly without checking the clock, for listening more than speaking, for offering wisdom only when it's asked for and love without needing it returned in the same way. This is the chapter where nothing needs to be proven. You've already done enough. You've loved, you've hurt, you've forgiven, you've lost, you've risen again. That makes you not just worthy of peace, but made for it. And peace doesn't mean silence, it means fullness. Wholeness, a life that no longer demands applause because it knows its own value. You may never hear the full impact you've had, the people whose lives were softened by your kindness, whose hearts were steadied by your presence. But it's there, like ripples in water, moving outward long after you've walked away. That's the legacy you carry, not one made of headlines or trophies, but one made of moments, of eye contact, of patience, of being the one who stayed when it mattered most. And now you get to matter to yourself, to wake each day and ask not, who needs me, but what do I need? You get to choose rest, joy, simplicity, new beginnings. You get to find comfort in quiet, strength in slowness, and wonder in the smallest things. You are not in the last act of your story. You are in the richest one. The chapter where everything comes together, not neatly, but honestly. And in this chapter, the 6 things that once felt far away now become the pillars that hold you steady. Purpose, movement, connection, curiosity, dignity, and the sense that someone, somewhere, still looks at you and thinks, I'm better because of you. Even if that someone is just you. So take a moment and breathe that in. Let it settle in your bones. You are still here. Still growing. Still capable of being surprised by joy. You haven't missed your chance. You're not too late. There is still time for laughter. Still time for friendship. Still time for love in whatever form it finds you next. You are not behind. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. And you belong. Always have. Always will.